recording in progress. We've wrought damage on Canada's Indigenous people. So I want to acknowledge the land. I'm in what's colonially known as Toronto, also called Toronto. And that this land that brings us together is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. And the Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe Nation, the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy that asked them to share and protect this territory. We recognize the presence and history of all Indigenous people on and of this land, both recorded and unrecorded, and we are committed to helping repair the history of injustice and damage that's been perpetuated on Canada's Indigenous people. We want to encourage all of you to be a part of building a more equitable future for Canada's Indigenous peoples. I ask you to really think, what can I do? Because you have a conversation with my daughter this morning, and it went like this: Siman, you have more power than you think, use it wisely. I say the same to all of us in this room. We have more power than we think, so let us use it wisely. As theater artists who are coming together from across Turtle Island, we want you to consider supporting Indigenous artists wherever you can. And so we thought you might like to know about a company that's near to me and all of us, Urban Inc. in Vancouver. For 20 years, Urban Inc. and its circle of artists have broken barriers through stimulating story, performance, and media. As they look ahead to the next 20 years to come, they strive to continue an indigenized practice that centers Indigenous and diverse voices, making space for our communities across Turtle Island. Urban Inc. uplifts Indigenous and diverse voices through storytelling and performance. If you would like to know more about Urban Inc., we would love for you to visit their website, engage with them, engage with their work, and I will pop that website right in the link for you to find out more about Urban Inc. and its fabulous team of artists. I would like to throw the mic to Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. So great to see so many faces. Well, faces, names that we know. So glad you're here for this conversation. We'd like to actually set some intentions for the space. So we'd like to start with the word curiosity. We'd like to challenge you to find something to be curious about. We all dare you. Bravery. All gatherings have the potential to come with built-in power imbalances. We have to be brave in stretching, but not tearing. No damage shall be done. This is theater, of course, and nobody's life should be on the line here. Support. We are here to buttress and hold one another up. We're not here to tear one another down. We are supporting one another by creating a safe enough space to stretch, but don't tear. Non-closure. We are collectively in search of answers, but we won't arrive at answers every single day, and certainly not by the end of this conversation. And our final intention is dare to be dreadful. We don't have to be excellent at all times. Allow yourself space to do something silly or whimsical for us, by us. And don't be scared. There are no stupid questions. We can't wait to engage with you. Now I'm going to introduce our moderator for today, the wonderful Julius Sermonia. I have had the pleasure of knowing this amazing performer and human for almost 15 years. His Broadway credits include Miss Saigon, The King and I, Dr. Zhivago, Jesus Christ Superstar, Cats, and then national tours of King and I, Contact, Cats, Miss Saigon, and of course his Canadian credits include A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum with Stratford and Mirvish, and 7 seasons of the Stratford Festival. And on one final personal note, I got to see Julius play Loon Ta. He was on for his understudy role in King and I couldn't have been more proud of him. So, I would like to welcome Julius Sermonia.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you all. I just wanted to take this time to thank Ray, Stephanie, and Sarah for having me on board to moderate this amazing opportunity to chat with Susan Stroman and David Krane. And I'm just so happy and privileged to be a part of this panel. So here we are. I'd like to first introduce one of our panelists, the distinguished Susan Stroman. I'd like to tell you about her. Stroman is a 5-time Tony Award-winning director, choreographer, and most known for Crazy for You, Contact, the Scottsboro Boys, the producers. Her work has been honored with the Olivier, Drama Desk, Outer Critics Circle, Lucille Lortel, and a record 6 Astaire Awards. Her other Broadway credits include Oklahoma, Showboat, Prince of Broadway, Bullets Over Broadway, Big Fish, Young Frankenstein, Thou Shalt Not, The Music Man, The Frogs, Big, Steel Pier, Picnic, and of course, Crazy for You. She has also created pieces for the New York City Ballet, the Martha Graham Company, the Pacific Northwest Ballet. Along with many other awards and nominations, she is the recipient of the George Abbott Award for Lifetime Achievement in the American Theater and an inductee of the Theater Hall of Fame in New York City. Wow, we are just so happy and privileged that she is with us today. We also have
hi everyone. Hello. Happy to be here.
we also have David Krane, and he has created the dance and music and additional score adaptation for the Oscar-winning film Chicago. Has written all new music arrangements with additional score adaptation for the film version of Nine, the film version of Into the Woods, and Mary Poppins Returns. All directed by Rob Marshall. And upcoming, the new live action The Little Mermaid. He has composed dance music and arrangements for over 30 Broadway shows, including On the 20th Century, She Loves Me, 110 in the Shade, La Cage aux Folles, Cabaret, Man of La Mancha, Oklahoma, Kiss of the Spider Woman, The Music Man, Showboat, Big, Ragtime, Victor Victoria, Manelli on Manelli, and Damn Yankees. His new musical with Stephen Cole, Goin' Hollywood, will premiere in Dallas in 2022. And you can find out more information on www.goinghollywood.com. Welcome, Susan and David. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello. Thank you.
Good.
It's great to be here.
Wonderful. I just want to take this opportunity also to say that I'm so happy and privileged because Susan Castro is here. I was privileged enough to work with her on the national tour of Contact, which
Very good.
was very young like me to be asked to do this amazing tour of this musical, which was the highlight of my career. It was the most amazing group of artists, and we got to tour the United States and Toronto with this amazing group. I will never forget it. I had no idea that you were going to stay with us through the entire process.
Of course.
It's such a magical experience watching you work. And I got to partner with my dance partners, Rebecca Sherman. And what I loved about that experience was that it was not, it didn't feel like I was replacing someone who was on the Broadway company. You really drew upon our strengths as a couple and individually, which made it feel more intimate. And it was just a beautiful piece of theater, and I was just so happy. And a highlight of that was in San Francisco when we were busy teching, and we all went out and went to a bar, and there was a pool table. And I was playing with a bunch of guys, and she still comes in, and I just remember her going, "Okay, I'm playing. Let's go." She picked up a. Here I am, like, oh my gosh, I'm playing pool with your iconic baseball cap and your ponytail.
Well, you were incredible in the show, honey. So incredible. I remember you so clearly. It was a very strong company, that national tour. And you know, whenever you get the opportunity to do a national tour, you do want to revisit everything. So you want it to look like the actors were meant to do it their way, and you want them to be able to feel as if they've created it. So giving each actor that attention is fantastic. In a way, it's, for me, the sets and the costumes are all worked out, the lighting's all worked out. So it's almost, you can give even more attention to the actors on the national tour in a way, you know. So I love that opportunity. Not everybody gets that chance to do a national tour. So when I do get that chance, if the show has made it enough to do that, I love it to work with new actors. And you were fantastic, really, really. Not only a beautiful dancer, but a beautiful actor in that piece.
Thank you so much. We are so lucky to have both of you with us today. Now, before We have a beautiful clip that Stro lent us and to watch and to share with everyone of the Dream Ballet for Oklahoma. But before we get into that, which I can't wait to share with everybody, we wanted to ask why is dance or movement integral to musical theater? And I'll let each of you answer that if you'd like.
Well, yes, well, I think it's really connected with the music, it's the music heightens the emotion. It's when you can't speak anymore, you have to sing. And when you can't sing anymore, you have to dance, So it just heightens the emotion. So for musical theater, it's very important though that it is believable when someone launches into song and dance, because we all have seen those musicals where it's like, oh, I don't know, I'm not believing that. But some way to make it believable that music and dance happens. And and also sometimes when someone sings, when they go into the dance, they can't just go into a dance, they have to stay in character. And that also will heighten the emotion. So it's very different for a choreographer than working with a dance company like New York City Ballet or Pacific Northwest Ballet or a modern company. You are dancing in character, so you are choreographing in character. And people are a character, Max Bialystock dances very differently than Leo Bloom, the North dances differently than the South, the East and the West. So it's all doing all that research, but it's all about the characters dancing, singing and dancing and staying in that character. So it appears seamless from the scene to the music to the dance. And part of our role, and I'll let you speak to this, David, too, is that we push the plot forward. We can't just stop a scene and let's put on a dance number. What David and I do is tell the story. So we push the story forward. And I'll let you take it, David Krane.
No, it's true. It's really all about a naturalness of the fact that when someone is singing and they're dancing, it is not what happens in real life. Sometimes you want to be doing it. You want to just dance on the street and so on. But the idea is it's capturing naturalness in specific time. So how do you do that? What choices do you make when you're starting from the text? You're starting from the character. And what Stro and I talk about, and what we work very hard to do, it's really transition and naturalness. And as Stro said about how would this character dance? Well, not only the character dance, but also the way they would move. Now, if you think about it, when you're seeing dance, when you're seeing theater, when you're seeing musicals from a stage, you're seeing everyone at a remove. You're not seeing everyone in close-up like you would do on television, like you would do. So the music has an extra responsibility when you're highlighting and generating the energy, the musical energy. It needs to be that much more specific to capture what the movement is doing, what the step is doing. And what I've been lucky enough to do is, and I speak to people about this, you have to be able to watch movement as a dance musician. Watch movement and don't look at the music, watch the dancer, be able to improvise, have enough musical styles and idea. I played for many dance classes when I was going to school. I played for the Joffrey Ballet, American Ballet Theater. I went on tour with the second company, and that was invaluable because all these. I'm sure all of you as dancers, you've seen pianists at dance classes where they have this big stack of music where they play. I wouldn't bring any music. I would bring a little card with a list of some tunes to jog my memory, but I would look at the movement and see what does that look like to me, and then I would just improvise. And it was like that was really what the fun was. So when I finally started to work with dance it was the big thing was the American Dance Machine, where I was musical director in one of its initial, and that was kind of like the education where all of these dance numbers from all these Broadway shows, most of them were not successful Broadway shows, but they were shows that a lot of this choreography was lost, and Lee Theodore, brought in the gypsies and brought in the choreographers to recreate their dance numbers. Now, none of this music, or hardly any of it, was recorded. Because the old cast recordings were only 45 minutes long. So this was all these styles to do an evening of all this music really informed my dance education, and people like Jemsy DeLapp would come in and recreate for Janet Elber the funeral dance from Brigadoon, and Peter Gennaro would come in and do a number from Molly Brown, and so Peter asked me to do the dance music for a new show that he was working on called Carmelina, which most people don't know about because it didn't last very long. But never mind, it was a spectacular experience, and that's kind of like what kind of got me into working with when Stroh and I got together. I don't even, shall I even say how many years ago it was?
You need to forget
because then we would have to be older than 10. It would be terrible.
Yes.
But at any rate, it was a long time ago, and our way of working, we're able to talk through structure. We're able to talk through. We're about to look at our wonderful Dream Ballet, which we adore. What we did is we sat down at the piano, which we always do. We sit down, and Stroh has her notepad, and I have the score in front of me, and we discuss what the goal is and what the structure is and what the storyline is, and then we break it down into different sections. And then once we have a clear idea of the nature of how many people are dancing and how the stage is going to move, and by that point we have a sense of what the set's going to be, a set of how things are going to work. Then I go away and I decide what seems the most natural, which characters have which themes, which songs have they sung earlier, which would be basically it's theme and variation. It's a theme and variation. The dance arrangements, you do veer into your own music, and you do need real composing skills. But it's really a theme and variation. And then what would happen was I would come back with musical ideas based on what they were meant to be doing, like the Cowboys, or like the in Kansas City with the rope and or the postcard girls in the ballet, and have musical ideas that I would present to Stroh, and we would tweak that, and then what would happen is I would have a structure, and then when we get with the dancers in pre-production, that's when these germs of sections get fleshed out, because when she has the bodies to work on, the phrases get longer, she needs more time for a transition and all of that. So that's kind of like the way it all happens. And the interesting thing is, it keeps evolving, you see. I keep watching for more and more detail, and stuff that, Stroh will come over, and of course we'll with a wonderful drummer, is this. There is no musical without a good drummer. There's no, it's the biggest, if all the drummers knew how powerful they really were, but with all the hits, all the accents, all the things, because what we're trying to do is make the sound three-dimensional. I'm trying to three-dimensionalize a moment, so that if you can imagine when a kick, that the kick is not just going up, the kick is going toward the audience in the sense that they're feeling a physicality in the music. So the music is not just meant to play along with the dance, where there's just music and there's dancing. It's an organic and living and breathing thing, and that's really what we go for. We go for a sense of spontaneity, that you feel that the characters are making it up. And right, Cheryl? Isn't that
Yeah,
what?
yes, absolutely. It's well, David is so visual. I mean, he has a gift. Not all piano players can do what David does. You know, he's a composer, but also he's unbelievably visual. So when I say to him, you know, I want him to chase her, he might play that in a fast 2, or I want them to fall in love and he'll play it in 3/4 time or something. You know, he's able to put the emotion by manipulating the time signature of the melody, and just visually before I even choreograph anything, it's in his head. And then, as he says, we are in pre-production and then in rehearsal, and he tweaks and he tweaks and he tweaks. I mean, when I at a very young age, watching Fred Astaire movies, when Fred would leap in the air, so would the orchestra. And I could clock that as a little kid. I knew that the music supported everything Astaire did in all those movies. So when I started, it was very much a part of me to make sure that the music supported my choreography. So actually, when I was asked to do Oklahoma, the first thing I said was, well, I have to be able to change all the arrangements. And I thought, well, that's not going to happen, you know. Because I thought, well, why would I do it? It would never match my choreography, you know. So they asked the Rodgers and Hammerstein estate if I could do that, and they said yes, unbelievably. And I brought on David Krane, and we were able to now change the arrangements and bring in a new orchestrator, Bill Braun, to orchestrate. Which again, the orchestrator David and I are very in tune with about, you know, this kick should have a drum, but this kick should have a flute on it, depending on what it should be. So it is quite a process doing a new piece and doing a new musical and making the choreography and music be one. They have to go hand in hand. And a lot of times an audience doesn't understand that, but they know that it's unbelievably satisfying. They don't know why. You
And
know,
it's capturing their interest and capturing their. I was just very honored to be the first person allowed to change the sacrosanct score of Oklahoma. It was amazing to be given that honor.
What a beautiful, yeah. It's a beautiful relationship you guys have between the arranger and the choreographer, and your relationship, your collaboration goes back many shows. World Goes Round, The Music Man, The Big, Showboat, and of course, iconic Oklahoma. And I just want to take a second to just give a little praise to the show and the choreography from here's a quote from the London Daily Telegraph regarding Oklahoma. Apart from the magnificent song, Susan Stroman's choreography is perhaps the biggest star of the night. Most striking of all is the Dream Ballet. It takes a bit of nerve to re-choreograph Agnes de Mille's legendary sequence. Stroman is up to the challenge, moving from romantic yearning to sexual threat. It works superbly, taking you right inside the heroine Laurie's heart and soul. What a great piece of work, and I'm so excited to share this clip.
Well, let me take you through some beats. So, because I want you to look at it, to listen to what David and I say, but then you'll see it happen when you see the clip. We don't have the whole Dream Ballet because that's a bit long, but we have a lot of it. First of all, when David was talking about, you know, the storytelling, if there are props that will exemplify the story, push the story along, we also do props. And for the Dream Ballet, it starts off, Ali Hakim, the peddler man, gives her a bottle of elixir, saying that if she smells this or tastes it, she's going to have her dreams will sort her out. So after she sings Out of My Dreams, she has this bottle. And then I say to David Krane, they've given me a cornfield on stage, and a cornfield is very magical. And in America, it's like a magic place, a cornfield. I'm surprised no one's had a cornfield in their Oklahoma, but there's a big cornfield. And, you know, because straw men come to life in a cornfield, baseball players come out of a cornfield, you know, it's like a magical place. So I wanted the Dream Ballet to take place in a cornfield. But I say to David, there's something magic happening, you know, and hands come out of the cornfield to beckon her in. So you'll see he he plays some magic music there to make you know that is something special is happening, make you know that
Something out of the ordinary is
out of the ordinary is happening. And she gets pulled into the cornfield. And lo and behold, we have two young dancers that dance with her. And throughout the show, these young girls are ornery. They do things wrong. They try to trip people and everything. And they steal the bottle from her, and she tries to get it back. Then, so David does a very playful version of Out of My Dreams, very playful while they toss the bottle. But then when they dance together, it's just a big, beautiful grand waltz. So the girls are in harmony. And then and you'll see when the girls go off, David would play, normally somebody would play bum, ba, 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 but David sees that they go leap on the one count, so it goes wop, ba, da, 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 wop, ba, da, 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 wop, da, 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 da. So David catches that big leap. So he just, manipulates the melody to make sure it supports those girls leaping. Then we bring out the girls with baskets because we're going to an auction. She's dreaming about auctioning off a basket. So girls dance with a basket. Then they partner up with the guys. David plays very athletic music for the men to enter. Yeah, David's very bass and rhythmic while the men come in. They partner off, but she's alone. And then lo and behold, Hugh Jackman comes up behind her.
and comes and lifts her from behind.
Yes.
And then they do a country version, a country waltz version of Oh, What a Beautiful Morning.
Yeah, I know. And I love that David used corn is as high as an elephant's eye. So he used that phrase knowing that elephant's eye, that she would be lifted high. So it adds to the lift because the audience knows, oh, we're talking about tall, we're talking about big, so he uses that melody for Hugh to lift her. And then we do like what you might see at a box social, just an easy two-step. And we use fiddle.
Country dance with a fiddle.
Dance, which ultimately, as they start to go, David then plays it in 3/4 time. It's much more romantic. And then you'll see there was a monologue that Laurie did about the things she wanted, a cut glass bowl and perfume that smells like honeysuckle. And she also says silver buckles for my shoes. So those props come in because we've heard her say she wants these, so she dreams about them. So David designed music to make these very special little gifts come. And then what's amazing, the wedding procession comes in and David plays up the scale like everything's going well. It has a very major, it's going great, and then Judd is there. So it's a big surprise. It's like he doesn't tip, that Judd.
Yeah, and one of my happiest things that I discovered is that wedding procession. I was able to dovetail when you don't with me, what is it? Me and Story on the Fringe on top. Bum 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 ba da da dum.
Yeah.
They went together, and the fact that it was all coming together, so that you really feel that it seems like a wedding. It's an absolutely happy ending. One other thing that I wanted to bring out when the girls dance with the two, when Laurie dances with the two girls in the lovely, when it turns into the lovely waltz together, we're in the rehearsal room. We have the rapturous dancer, Josephina Gabrielle, whom everyone will see dancing this. And Stroh says, we need her to dance alone. We need a whole nother chorus of her doing it. And so I improvised and then wrote a whole other chorus. And I had to, as rapturous that was, I needed to up the ante. And you listen to what that is. And if you can listen past to what the famous tunes are of what you're hearing, listen to what the underpinning is, because the underpinning is going through with the dance phrases. The underpinning is going through where the traveling is on the stage. That's really, and that which we did on the spot. And Stro was so inspired that day with Josephina to have an instrument of such beauty to work with. It was truly one of the marvelous moments, and Josephina speaks about it to this day as one of her most favorite moments in a rehearsal room.
Well, too, there's usually a dream Laurie and a dream Curly, but for a contemporary audience, I felt if I could have people who could dance it, why not have them be, because people invest in those characters, and for an audience to invest in the character and then all of a sudden two people come in that you don't know, that really can't be done any longer. You invest in those characters, you want to see them dance, whether they can dance great or not. But these two could really dance great. So they were inspiring, as David said. And I am inspired by actors and dancers.
Yes.
I do pre-production, but when I get that dancer in front of me, things change, and because I want to make it look great for them. So, Josephina was inspiring. And then one last little thing, we don't go all the way, but we do, just to show you, we bring in the postcard girls, because Laurie looked in the smokehouse at the postcard girls hanging up in the smokehouse, Judd's postcards, and was kind of shocked about them, but titillated with them at the same time. So we bring in the postcard girls, and David uses the music of I'm Just a Girl Can't Say No, and does it very rhythmically, and all of a sudden it changes, and
like it's a sleazy honky tonk is really
Yeah.
what it is. It's a ragtime honky tonk. It would be the music if he went to a house of ill repute at that time, something
Yes,
like that.
and you bring in the horns there too. We haven't had the
Yeah.
horns come in, so we only go up to there. But I thought that was enough for you to see the kind of variation of all of David's music and how it supports the choreography. So I
And the
think we can go to videotape.
Let's, I think Sarah has it queued up. Do you have that, Sarah?
Yeah. Sharing screen
Wonderful.
right
Here we go.
Okay.
This is the Dream Ballet.
Woo!
Wow. So
I thought that would, be a good example to show you how David's music supports all of it, and his choices of what melodies to use and when we work together on every show, we work the same way. The process is all about talking about the story and how to make the story go forward. And it's a great relationship. And when we did the Music Man together, one of the things that I think people remember most from that production is the curtain call, because I said to David, well, first of all, when you read a novel, at least when I read a novel, I think, well, what are those people doing after I shut the book? And I thought, well, what are these people doing in the town at the end of the script of the Music Man? So I thought, well, they're probably all playing the trombone. So I asked the producer, Michael David, if I could give them all trombone lessons at 4:00 every day. And I thought, it'll either work or it won't. If it doesn't work, they'll just bow. And if it works, it'll be great. And, it just sounded terrible the first week. I mean, I walked by, it was like a moose or two in there having sex or something. It was just terrible. And then, after that second week of them learning, I was like those mothers in the Music Man thinking, oh, my kids, they're playing the trombone. They're doing it. And so we decided to do a curtain call, and we worked out how to make it like a marching band. But yet everybody had their moment with their instrument. And then David came up with this wonderful jazz section to play the trombones with, a variation on 76 trombones. And then of course it erupts into the tune 76 trombones. But it ultimately became like a very, very famous curtain call.
Oh yes.
The thing also,
I remember watching it. It was everyone rose to their feet when the young actors were playing the trombones and the musical instruments. It was amazing.
but you see, Stroh's idea was so organic because the whole plot line is he's meant to give music lessons, and he's a fraud. And then at the end, yes, everyone can magically play the trombone. Isn't that absolutely wonderful? It all worked. They're all brilliant. Now, there's one other little point I wanted to say, and that has to do with as a musician, having a sense of how long it takes, how much stage time it takes in beats for a physical movement. So when someone jumps up in the air, you know that, or someone does a battement, does a whole bunch of chaînés, or does that, it takes X amount of time that has to be written into the music. Otherwise, the dancers will constantly, I'm sure you guys have been in situations where the music hasn't supported you guys, where you're trying to, it's impossible to dance on the beat because you know you need more time in that turn, or you need more time to cross the stage. It's having a sense of what physically it feels like. And even though I'm not a dancer, my mom was a kind of ballroom dancer, and she had us dancing the cha-cha and the mambo as kids, and the merengue and all this kind of stuff, and the lindy. I had a sense of what it's like to move through time, and that's the one thing that I think. Again, don't look at the musicians. Watch the dancers. Take your inspiration, but have the dancers. You guys should talk to your musicians and say, look, I need more time, because when I'm lifting my leg and I'm turning, I can't do this to this amount of time. So for Stroh and our big thing are transitions, and it's not a big enough button. So it's our search for the bigger button is it's kind of like the holy grail, It's like, what will really, no, that's not a big enough puppy. No, this is, we need to land. It's about landing the number, having a sense of what, and all of our intuition is based on it. So I will tell Stro, after all these years of working with her, I heard her little voice in my head as I'm working, no, we need more time. No, this is no, this is not going to be right. Because it's all about anticipating what the needs are. Right, Stro?
Yeah, it's a big part of it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stro, I'd like to know what do you feel is the best way for choreographers to communicate your ideas to a composer or a dance arranger?
Well, I think you need to be on the same page about the story. In the end, it's all about the story and all about the characters. And, whenever I do any show, I do a lot of research on the geographical area and the decade of where we're taking place. And, when David and I did Showboat together, we were going from like 1887 to 1927. We were spanning a lot of years. So David had to bring in material for 40 years of the kind of rhythms to make it, again, we were given permission from the Krane estate to open up all this music, and we made montages to help push the years forward. Not only the story, but we were pushing years forward. So people would come out of the Palmer House with the next kind of fashion or whatever, and David would appropriately play music that would match that fashion for the audience to know we were going forward. Till we ultimately ended up doing a giant Charleston. At the end. Yeah.
Yeah, and what and Stro would do from the history, we would see a street musician, a Black street musician playing the cornet on the street, and you would see the beginnings of the jazz of movement in Charleston, and the history of how movement evolved, and for these montages as well. There've been so many productions of Showboat over the years that there has been a lot of tunes, a lot of marvelous songs like Hey Feller that have been cut out of it. And so we were able to use these unexpected songs that were not in your usual production of Showboat to illustrate the story. Yeah, but that was something that was never been done before. It was all about the passage of time, as Stro said, but also the idea of creating an energy, telling a story, because a story was told at every moment. So that really is what it's all about.
In the end, it is about delivering that story and pushing that plot forward. And now, to be quite honest, an audience has a cinematic eye, so they need that story to go forward, even in transitions. You can no longer do a blackout and bring the Showboat on and then bring the lights up. You have to, something's got to be going on to tell the story while the set is changing. And you can no longer write a song named called Bill and there's no Bill in the show. You can't do that either. So everything has to be, about the story. And I think that because an audience with a very cinematic eye, and they want that story to be constantly told and pushed forward, and dance helps do that.
Absolutely.
David, you have done dance arrangements on many revivals and new shows, on shows that are considered dance heavy and those that are not. How do you approach all of these in unique? Do you approach these in unique ways? The different amounts of like either a dance heavy show or not dance heavy show. Do you approach it in a very? How do you approach those, and how differently do you approach those projects?
Well, I think it all depends on again, going back to the story and what the composer and it's serving the score. It's serving the idea. I like a musical dance arranging. I don't like the word arranging. It's something to do with flowers, but it's one likens it to a musical tailor, where you really, as you're sitting there watching a piece unfold, shouldn't be conscious of, oh, now the dance arrangers started here at this note, and now it's changed from what I was
Oh,
listening to another hand. It should sound like
Did
one
I freeze up? Did David
continuous.
freeze up? Am I the only one talking? I can't hear. Wait.
You seem frozen, Stroman. You
She seems.
seem.
We
you
can
seem
hear you.
frozen.
She can
She's,
hear you.
you can hear you. You're frozen in time.
She'll
But
There she is.
so you're back. You
I'm
froze
back, sorry.
briefly. You froze briefly. But the idea is really, I don't think if it's dance heavy, it doesn't. It just means that there are more involving numbers that tell a story. I mean, different choreographers work in different ways, but I think the one thing they do is they want to have a seamless connection from the original piece. I mean, I've worked with living composers, I've worked with dead composers, and then I've worked with Maury Yeston, who kindly said to me when I did the film 9, he said, "Make believe I'm dead." And that was the highest praise. That was the highest praise I could have gotten from anyone, because he meant that he trusted me enough to know that he didn't want to be breathing down my neck and asserting something, because he knows that we're serving the vision of it's visualizing through the music to tell a story, but it's the biggest important thing is to be part of the fabric, be part of the connected to it. So it doesn't really change. Of course, it's much more fun to work on things that exercise more of your musical muscles. And of course, with Stro, we've done we've run the gamut really of every era, every style, including China, which we won't mention, but it's we did travel. We did travel there.
We did, yeah, but briefly, David and I were doing a huge extravaganza of Kung Fu Panda, and we were heading to China, and we happened to be heading to China about a couple months before the virus broke in Wuhan. So it was the protesters that kept us from going, and thank God for the protesters, because we would have been in China, we would have been being evacuated.
Oh my
It would have been anyway. Yeah, so that never happened. That show never happened. But we worked on Kung Fu Panda, and David took the Hans Zimmer score and adjusted it to make it match. Almost it was like Cirque du Soleil. So it was a lot of flying elements, and so David was extraordinary at making this show out of some Hans Zimmer tunes that audiences would know from Kung Fu Panda, because all those characters have themes, and David made those, huge. We had a Pro Tool operator where we actually had it electronically laid out. David would play it on electronic.
I created orchestrations. I created orchestrations of it that would be recorded. It was kind of like working putting a movie on the stage, but that was a great challenge. But again, it's just part of. It was a wonderful, wonderful challenge, and I hope that someday in the future that might happen.
Someday, it won't be soon, but someday. No, we're not going there anytime soon.
No, that's true.
Well, you both work beautifully together, as we can see in the past shows you've done together. Here's a question. I'm curious, how do you get yourselves out of like a rabbit hole when there's a friction or disagreement? How do you come together to smooth or iron those issues out?
Well, I think it's, there can't be any egos in the room. You got to work it out. You just work it out. I don't think we've ever had any. We've had a couple dodgy producers, but we haven't. As far as artists, we've always been able to work it out with composers and estates, and I think it's just what it is too. It's hearing what each other has to say, because sometimes if you do come up against something where someone says you can't do that, you will come up with a better idea. So it's always, nothing can stop you. I mean, there'll be another way to do something.
Communication is obviously key with all that said, oh, amazing. Here's another question. Stro, when you read a new script, do you envision how dance can be used in the narrative right away, or how do you work through the process with the writers or composers?
Yeah, then very closely. I work with the writers very closely of how a show comes together, and part of it is how to do these arrangements, how to take a melody, a 32-bar melody, and then open it up, to forward the story. So, I do work closely with the writers. Absolutely. I'm very much a part of whatever project I do right at the beginning as I take it through.
Oh, fantastic. Here's a question for David. Now you've done, you began as a rehearsal pianist on Broadway, and then an assistant musical director, then a dance arranger. How do you learn from those early positions that help you get to the place you are now?
Oh, I think every single show that we do, every single music experience, we bring it with us moving forward, especially working with the great artists and great musicians, and it's seeing something evolve from a concept to something in the room to have it take dimension and see it realized and see it in front of an audience. It's really the process. It's the affirming of the process. If anything that you learn, anything that I've learned, and Stro will agree with me on this, is that it's our instinct. If we know something is, if we feel something is not right, it's not right, and it's not going to be right. And you'll know, you trust when something's gnawing at you. You see something and you say, well, no, this is not as best as it could be. It's those muscles get stronger and stronger. And if anything, you learn what not to do. You get an idea of what the best thing to do is. I mean, I'll be with Stro and we'll be in rehearsal and pre-production, and we know what the goal is. And then we get to the star. And then the star has to be talked into doing what we know is best. And just letting, it's the technique of dealing with creative people, steering them or giving them the support to do their best work. And that's what Stro has always done so brilliantly, working with non-dancers as well as the greatest dancers as well, making them, getting B. Arthur in a concert with the Boston Pops in Wonderful Town, allow herself to be lifted up in the air, and figure at the end of it that would be, working and having a sense of just how to adjust and how to, is a great talent. And you just strengthen your ability to do that the more that you do. I think that the greatest thing is having more and more experiences and learning from those experiences as to answer you.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful.
I think we lost Stroman.
Am I back? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I was thrown off, actually. Someone threw me off, but I've come back on.
Well.
Well, I know.
Yeah, I think Sarah has a couple of questions maybe from the audience, perhaps. If anybody had anything.
Yes, we had one before, and this applies to both of you. Has there ever been a moment where you thought about giving up directing and or choreographing, or for David, dance arranging? If so, how did you convince yourself to stick with it?
Well, I've never had that thought. And that doesn't mean I won't have it. If this pandemic keeps up, I might not. But I've never. I love what I do. I absolutely love it. I love working with actors and dancers, and I love music and everything about it. So, I think for those of us in the musical theater, we're real storytellers. And my father was a wonderful piano player. Could play like David. He could play anything in any key. He was wonderful. But he also he told big fish stories, so part of that storytelling was very much part of my growing up. So those of us in the musical theater are storytellers. And I don't think you ever lose that, and so I do know how fortunate I am to do what I love. I do know that, absolutely fortunate. But I've never thought about doing anything else. David?
No, I mean, first of all, you don't, Sarah, you don't set out to be a dance arranger. I mean, I didn't, and I was trained as a classical musician and a composer, and that's really that's what my track is. But did I ever think of doing anything else? No, it doesn't. It's something that when we look back on it, and I think Stroh will agree with me, just everything happened. If you look back on what led to something else happening and what led to something else happening, we are very blessed to be able to have worked as much on many different things and through our lives, and look forward to many more. And it ain't over yet.
Ain't over yet.
No. Wonderful. I think there's another question here that I'm reading. So can you talk about the inspiration and process for choosing the episodes for Contact?
Oh, sure. I was in a club in New York City about 1 a.m, and where all New Yorkers wear black, all good New Yorkers wear black. See, David's in Connecticut now; he's wearing blue. But and I was in a club, and people were dancing, and in walked this girl in a yellow dress, and I got obsessed watching her, and I thought, she'd step forward when she wanted to dance with the man, and then retreat back to the bar when she was done with them. And I thought, well, this girl's going to change some man's life tonight. And then she just disappeared. I turned my head and she was gone. It's like Brigadoon, she was gone. But it was one of those things that had stuck in my head, a girl in a yellow dress in a New York club at 1 a.m. It was very bold to wear yellow. So then about 2 weeks later, Andre Bishop from Lincoln Center called me in to meet him. I'd never met him. And he said, look, if you have an idea, I'll help you develop it, which was, to hear that from a producer, you never hear things like that. So I said, you know what, I think I might have an idea. And I called my good friend, John Weidman, who we did Big with and became good friends. And we just talked about what this idea would be. And I wanted to do a piece that would be for New Yorkers, or ultimately people who live in a city, and people who can't seem to make contact. They fight to live on top of each other, but can't make contact. So we started to develop this story. And the idea was that this man has had it and he's lonely and he tries to kill himself. And ultimately, if he doesn't make contact that night, he will die. And part of the idea of using existing music was the thought that if you're about to kill each other, the soundtrack of your own life goes through. It's not the soundtrack of a new composer goes through your head. It would be the soundtrack of songs that meant something in your life. So that's how that started. And you would see the CDs in his apartment. So that's how that idea came to use existing music for his life. And I got 18 dancers, went into the basement of Lincoln Center and created the girl in the yellow dress. And Andre Bishop came down and went, whoa, I want to produce this, but can you lengthen it? And we said, no, it's not quite right to lengthen. But, he said, well, do you have any other short stories? And I said, yeah, I got a lot of short stories in my head I can make. So the other 2 short stories were about contact. The first one about 3 people who have no problem making contact whatsoever. And the second story about a woman who was in a relationship but can't make contact with her husband, an abusive relationship. And then the third was the girl in the yellow dress, about if you don't make contact, you'll die tonight. So it ended up being, what was wonderful about Andre Bishop asking me is that he didn't say, I want you to write a musical or an opera or a play or a dance piece. You just do whatever you want. And that's how Contact came to be, because we were just creating. We weren't having to be in a category. And it's still the longest running show from Lincoln Center. It ran for like 3.5 years between the Mid-City and the Vivian Beaumont. So it was a very special show for all of us, because it came from, a real core, a real raw place.
I do remember auditioning for you for that show, and one of the things that I remember about that audition was you gave us a piece of choreography, and you asked us to just to dance it, and then stopped and gave us an emotion, a different emotion to perform the choreography. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then another emotion. And I think that bled on through like maybe the first week of rehearsals for the national tour. And I thought that was the most amazing exercise.
Oh, well, yeah, because I know if you've made it that far, I know you can dance, but it's now to see how you can act with your dance and feel your dance in your heart. So you can do the same combination a lot, but just saying, well, now, dance it as if you're in love, or dance it as if you're angry, or dance it as if you're drunk or something, and then you get to play with the different acting of the same movement.
Yes.
And it just shows me the versatility of someone's acting chops.
That's always stayed with me, and I really appreciate that. That was really, but that was a great question. Is there another question we can?
I got one sent to me.
Okay.
This one is, what are the elements to create a great button? Not just from a dance point of view, but also technical or story point of view.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has to do musically too, is making that music swell and rise up the scale, if you will. If it's a giant button, like the end of 76 trombones or something, it does take, but it has to feel organic too, right, David Krane? It has to feel like it's come from a place to go bam.
It's about the build, but it's not about a simple build. It has to do with what's implied, and sometimes teasing a build and going back. I think the best illustration of this is Stroh's magnificent "I Got Rhythm" choreography for "Crazy for You." I think that is one of the greatest builds of all time. Taking all of the elements and just having a sense of this. It's a button is also release. It's tension, release. So it's all about the build. It's all about the feeling, and it is a rise, and but it's something, again, it's the organic aspect of it that's so elusive and tricky to find.
Yeah,
but
in like Crazy for You, what David's at that. What makes the button of "I Got Rhythm" so good is that it has a cliffhanger in it. It's the end of Act 1. So just when Bobby and Polly are bringing rhythm back to the town, and you think everything's fine, the real Zangler comes into town, and all of us, and they don't see him because he's like low on the ground because he's exhausted from walking through the desert. So they do a big button, but then there's this cliffhanger of the real Zangler's there. It's going to throw the lovers off, so, but even in the Farmer and the Cowman, David, when we created that together,
Yes.
That normally doesn't have a big button in the real, the original one, but but it was the idea of the farmers and the cowmen coming together and actually dancing together, because the choreography in Oklahoma is about fighting for territory and playing "Can You Top This?" So all the steps are fight oriented. Choreography is fight oriented, not in the Dream Ballet, but in the realistic dances. And so it's about, they fight through the piece, but at the end they all come together in a circle that is unbroken and unbroken, and the farmers and the cowmen go together, and David keeps building and building and building, and so it actually works very well organically, and it's a hell of a button.
And then the final picture, and then as to accompany your button, you have to have you have to have that perfect, and the picture has to be a surprise again.
Yeah.
So as they're going around in a circle, there is some final lift, there is some final moment where there's something that just goes even farther, higher, that also helps give a sense of release, really.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, great question. Great question. Do we have time for one more, or?
I think so. We have one more.
Oh, sure.
Naomi asks, when approaching a show, do you like to watch previous versions or start fresh with your own ideas?
Start fresh. Yeah, absolutely. And just have the script in your hand and the story. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's because I think the revivals that are the most successful are the ones that are reimagined, but give respect to what's come before them. Stand on the shoulders of all that creative team before them, but then reimagine it to more emphasize the storytelling. Yeah, so I think it's not so much dwelling on what was done before.
And David, how was that different for your end musically?
Well, I think it's a little inevitable to acquaint oneself to what other arrangers have done with the music, just to see what the choices are, and to decide why those choices were made, because it's very easy to leave those aside, because again, what we're doing on a fresh production with fresh eyes that Stro would have, we would be throwing all that away anyway. We'd be throwing that all away to focus on this new vision, on this new idea of what the goal is. We always, Stro and I always talk about what the goal is here and what we need to achieve in this piece. And of course, that would not have anything to do with past versions of the piece.
That's a great question. Great question.
Julius, can I jump in? Can I jump in with one really final question, and then I think Stephanie needs to say thank you and goodbye. It's on this exact topic. When you are reimagining something and you're staring at the great abyss of possibilities ahead of you, and like all humans, I'm sure you get stuck at some point. What do you do to get unstuck? What's your top thing? You know, Martha Graham would say to Louis Horst, "Play me the Maple Leaf Rag," right? And she'd get unstuck. What's your thing that unsticks you facing that abyss of possibility?
I get in a horizontal position, lay down on the floor. That's what I do. I just lay down on the floor. And I just think of the visual. I keep thinking of the visual. I think of the visual and the storytelling, you know. I just keep thinking about the story and making sure I haven't forgot something that would inspire me about the character or the plot. So I go back to that all the time, and I do that in a horizontal position on the floor.
I think Stro has the remarkable ability to in her creative mind, in her thought processes, she has this inner vision, this inner focus of being able to actually see a stage and be part of. Tell me if I'm wrong, Stro. You can put yourself on stage and dance on stage and see what that is from that direction, or see it from the front. But the idea of conceiving of pictures, conceiving of movement, conceiving of how images that you have. I don't know anyone that has that ability quite in that way, but it's one of your many gifts, I think.
Wonderful. I think that is all we have time for today. I just want to say thank you so much. We've learned so much and anecdotes, and it's so inspirational. Thank you again. It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you all with us today. And I'm gonna give it up to. Oh, before we go, I just wanted to find out, before we wrap, is there anything you're working on now that you're really excited about?
I'm excited about a couple things, but I can't talk about them. But I'm excited about them. I can't talk about them, but I'm excited.
Excellent.
David's got Little Mermaid coming out.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's where, don't hold your breath. It's going to be 2023. We will all be 2 years older, year and a half older. But it's 23 is going to be a big year. And that actually is when my show, Go in Hollywood, which I'm very excited about, will be actually, now it's been pushed to the spring of 23 in Dallas. And that's something will be, 10 years that we've been working on it. And it's very, very exciting that this is finally happening. And onward we go.
But I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand it off to either Stephanie or Ray at this point. Thank you again. It's such a pleasure and honor to have you join us today.
It was really, really lovely. And because a lot of people don't know how this happens, how when you look at a number, how it came to be. It's a miracle a musical happens. And this is just part of it, how it happens. So I'm glad that someone thought of us to talk about it. So thank you very much.
Yes, we appreciate that very much.
We do appreciate that, absolutely.
And there's so many talented people up in Canada and we've worked with you guys, and you guys are wonderful. We love you.
Well, thank you both so much. I mean, you've certainly both influenced my career as looking at your work. And I'm just so grateful. And thank you, Julius. We also want to thank our financial supporters and sponsors, the Toronto Arts Council, which sponsored all these conversations this week, Metro Movement. So if you're taking class this week, we have awesome classes with all music by Canadian music theatre composers. George Brown Dance and Randolph College for the Performing Arts, which of course are coming on as our Watch Me Work sponsors on the weekend. And thank you, of course, to Ray Hogg and Prime Mover Theatre Company. Prime Mover relies on financial support from donors. If you found today's conversation illuminating, we'd love you to invite you to join us in supporting Prime Mover with a donation, and Sarah is going to pop that link in the chat. If you have questions, observations, or thoughts on today, or about anything we're doing, feel free to email us at dancemeasongcollective@gmail.com, or visit us online at theatermakingmovement.com. And of course, you can follow us on social, Theater Moves, or Theater Making Movement on Insta. And we run until Sunday. So tomorrow, there's a conversation with our colleagues in the UK, Movement Director Ingrid McKinnon, who is originally from Canada, but she's been over in the UK for a while, and composer and music director Tarek Merchant. So we're very excited about this very different perspective than we've been talking about the last 2 days. And then, of course, class tomorrow is with Phil Nero, featuring music by the amazing Alaska Bee. And all sorts of, check out our website for all the amazing things that are happening the rest of the week. So thank you, everybody, for being here. We're so thrilled to see new faces and people who are our colleagues on this call. So thank you so much, Stro, Julius, and David.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Hi, Anne from